Hello, am I audible?
Good morning, Professor Mohanty.
Good morning. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Very good morning. Welcome to this 14th session of this FDP. And I am really thankful and grateful to you for accepting our request to conduct this session again today, back to back. And dear participants, Professor Mohanty, we don't need any more introduction of Professor Mohanty. He had taken a marvelous session yesterday, and I expect the same today. We could see that he has joined from home today, being a Saturday, and we are bothering people. And you can also see that I am also joining from home today, being a Saturday. So, welcome, Mr. Professor Mohanty. The stage is all yours. You can start with the session right there.
Okay. So, namaskar to all my participants, my fellow colleagues from different institutions across the country. Okay, and wish you in advance a great Independence Day tomorrow, and maybe
same to you. Same to you.
And further in advance, a happy Teachers' Day next month, 5th of September. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll extend the conversation we had yesterday. Okay, and we will take it forward from where we left yesterday, right? But nothing would be carried forward from yesterday. We would be progressing, but we'll try and have the same conversation what we had yesterday. Okay. So let me share the screen. Otherwise, it becomes an extempore almost. I share it. Dr. Mishra, if you could just help me, how do I share it? There is a button over here. Okay, and various effective decision making. And
yeah, you can share it now.
Okay, are my participants able to see the presentation?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, no, sir.
Yeah, it's coming. It takes time. WebEx takes time.
Okay, so now are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good and great. So let's begin from where we left yesterday, the conversation. And let me also put it on the full screen mode.
Professor Mohanty, is it all right now?
Yeah, it's perfectly all right. Perfectly all right.
Okay, you have not shared this PPT with me.
Oh, is it? Oh, I have not. I thought maybe I sent it to you day before yesterday. But well, it's not a problem. It was still in progress. The work was in progress. Okay, so I couldn't send it till the last moment. I was making some changes or the other,
Yeah.
So the nervousness that how much will I be able to cover, kept me on my toes. Okay, so I will definitely share it the moment the session gets over. I think that's okay, right?
And the other thing also.
Okay. Okay, great. So let's begin. I mean, sorry, there could be a few distractions and there could be a few interruptions in between because I'm speaking from home today, rightly pointed out by Dr. Mishra. I wanted to actually paste, one of those screens, artificial screens. Okay, but then I couldn't do or I didn't do, I don't know. But then ultimately you are getting to see the background that I have in my place. Okay. So that should not be bothersome for you, but there could be disturbances or there could be distractions for fractions of seconds. Okay, and if there is a power cut, because the institute where I work has an uninterrupted power supply but my home doesn't have one. Okay, so in case eventually if there is a power cut, you might just have to bear with me for 3 or 4 minutes. I suppose you would not mind. Okay, so let's begin. I think even today we are late by the 10 minutes, so maybe we'll extend the other session. We'll extend it by 10 minutes. On the other side, if the host and the organizer permits so to happen, or in case if I have enough content to extend it that long. So having said that, let me begin with one simple question. Okay, we are hearing a lot on the advances being made by technology. We are talking about the artificial intelligence age. We are talking about cryptocurrencies, and then we are talking of myriad different kinds of technology that's going to invade our lives, and it's going to change forever. Okay, So now I just have one question, that why and how you think humans will continue to be relevant with this kind of a transgression happening? How do you see that we as human beings will contribute, in shaping up this world? Or do you think we'll all be moving towards oblivion, okay, and there would be no traces left of human presence, and it will be all machines, okay, all around us? Okay, so if I were to ask you this simple question, that where do you think that we as human beings are going to stay relevant? Okay, I mean, your views on this. Maybe quickly, one or two, you can unmute yourself and feel free and talk. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. We, as a human being, will always be there. Now, the similar question was asked to me by my principal when I was doing a workshop on blended learning. Can technology ever replace teachers? So no, because all the tools, techniques, what we are using the machines, but ideas and the originality remains with us. So in that the same way, the machines, cryptocurrency, whatever it is, the basic planning remains with the human.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Since not many answers coming, my question was even more pointed. My question was, it's not going to be becoming irrelevant. But the question is, we continue to be influencers the way we have been for centuries. That's the larger question. That we continue to occupy the main stage the way we have been in the past several millennia. That's the question. I mean, it's us. They're intelligent creations. That is what I was asking. I mean, we are basically talking about replacing intelligence, right? Right, we are talking about intelligence which is generally replaceable. We think due to the invasion of technology somewhere. So my question is that what kind of an intelligence do you think will still keep us relevant?
May I, sir?
Yes, Sinha, go ahead, please.
Sir, there are, as you rightly said, there are machines with AI and everything. And
Dr. Sinha, you are not quite audible. Your voice is cracking and you are not quite audible, please.
Sir, I'm saying maybe network issue. I'm saying that humans can never be replaced by the machine, as far as, especially in the teaching, when teaching is concerned, because the human values, the human aspect, the emotional connect a human can have with the students can never be replaced by the machines. So, human interaction, human values, human ethos, human aspects. I'll write in the chat box. Don't worry.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Sinha,
Emotional
bleak, but I was able to hear you. Yeah. Somebody else wanting to speak. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, sir, it's me only. I was saying ki we mean emotional intelligence.
No. I'm just talking about basic intelligence, because from that is where the idea of decisions have come up. Okay, if you take away the human intelligence, or what we call adaptive intelligence, that is something March and Simon have claimed, and one of them got a Nobel Prize for it. Okay, I mean, we are questioning basic intelligence. Okay, if you try and replace basic intelligence that is endowed with human beings, okay, where do you see we are headed? I mean, do we still continue to be there in the contention, or will all disappear in thin air? I don't know. Because that's really scary. And as I understand, what differentiates a man from an animal is perhaps this particular feature.
Right.
Perhaps I'm wrong. Okay, perhaps I'm wrong.
But I mentioned something in the chat box.
Yeah.
I've written something in the chat box.
Okay. I'll have a look at the chat box. Yeah. You see, in my understanding, whatever little that I have read, what differentiates between man and an animal, me and a lion, or me and a tiger, okay, or some of the more supreme creations, okay, in the entire evolution, including the monkeys and the chimpanzees, where we have an identical resemblance almost to a tune of 99% or so. So we are very congruent in our genes. But if you ask me what differentiate and why you think humans have evolved faster than other animals, okay, as I understand, is the innate intelligent ability of human beings to recognize patterns. Okay, why we were able to understand nature better? Why were we able to translate nature better to make use of it in implementing scientific and technological discoveries? Okay, is the idea behind, I think, the entire concept behind this is our innate ability to recognize pattern. So if you ask me what differentiates and what will keep differentiating, okay, men from the rest of the species on earth, other than the Homo sapiens, of course, okay, is the ability to recognize patterns. And the day you feel that the machines will be able to recognize the patterns on their own, okay, I think we will become the servants and they become the masters. And I don't see that happening in at least in a foreseeable future. I don't see that happening. So, my argument here is that so long you are able to recognize a pattern as a superior creation of nature, okay, nobody takes away that power from you. Nobody takes away that position from you that you have acquired over the past thousands of years. Okay, so as I understand, one of the anomalies of decision making is somewhere or the other to understand the pattern. And the day and the moment we understand a particular pattern taking shape, okay, that is where we start making superior decisions. Okay, but not always these patterns happen or they fall out the way we want them to fall out. Okay, sometimes these patterns are so erratic, okay, that they lead to certain ironies of judgment. Okay, because as I said, we are definitely characterized by two basic functions of human being: decision and judgment. And let's try and understand, judgment is a function of decision, right? We make decisions only because we judge. And when we judge, we are essentially judging the patterns. We are judging nothing but patterns. And that is where I think our superiority will continue for at least a few hundred years that I see. Unless something very catastrophic happens in the next 20, 25, 30 years, or man gives up the race and says like fine, machines take over. And I have created an intelligent machine which can recognize the pattern as good or even better than human beings. Okay, and that perhaps will make us the servants. Perhaps we will be happier then because we don't have to do, that is what the future looks like. Maybe we'll be more peaceful. We don't have to do a lot of work. Okay, we'll be given our food, shelter, and clothing, everything by the machines. Okay, then perhaps we'll be holidaying 365 days. But then, that's a different kind of a science fiction utopia. Okay, so let's not bring that over here. But so, guys, having said that came to my mind, very instantly. I thought of why not sharing that how our decisions, okay, would still influence the planet and the universe for several years to come. So the story is not yet over. So even if people are trying to, paint very scary pictures, and sometimes it definitely gets scary. It gets scary because there are mad people around the world who are trying to create certain systems, particularly open systems, okay, which can very easily, okay, take over some portions of our intelligence. Now let's look at calculative or accounting intelligence, more or less replaced. It's a different matter that the government policy is not allowing that to happen, but accounting intelligence has already been taken over. Okay, so the diligence of a machine, okay, and the infallibility of the machine is threatening our survival. Thoughts about it. But then, so long we are able to recognize the new patterns and emerging patterns, okay, we'll continue to live. We'll continue to thrive. Okay, so taking you away from a bit of a fiction and the future, because this has a lot of bearing on the kind of decisions that we make. Okay, because if the moment your ability, the intelligence to somewhere and the other recognize the pattern goes down, okay, your quality of decisions fall. Your quality of decisions fall. That is where I wanted to begin this conversation with. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, let us look at the basic. Okay, have you heard of this gentleman called Daniel Kahneman? I suppose yes. People who might have taught MBAs or BBAs or might have studied some literature in management, or people who are readers of decision making would definitely have heard of this word Daniel Kahneman. Okay, Daniel Kahneman got a Nobel Prize, okay, in giving theories on decision making. That was a Nobel Prize in economics, mind you. Okay, it was a Nobel Prize. No, Daniel, hello, I'm talking about Daniel Kahneman, not Daniel Goleman. Goleman is emotional intelligence. Kahneman is decision making. Okay, Kahneman, Israeli, who got migrated to US, okay, wrote extensively on decision making theories. Okay, particularly the decision making intelligence. That is something he specialized in, and then he talked about cognition, information, and decisions. Okay, the work which was partially completed by James March. He took it from there and built it and got a Nobel Prize for it. But he got a Nobel Prize in economics for writing on decision, because somewhere he tried to provide a link between economic decisions and the cognitive fallacies. Okay, and a fallout of this was perhaps the development of behavioral economics as we understand. But anyways, let's not get into that. So Daniel Kahneman wrote a phenomenal book, okay, a seminal work he did on systems of thinking. Okay, from the Israeli forces that he studied over the years, and later in American samples, okay, he deduced that generally decision making happens in two ways. Okay, he called it a system one and a system two. Okay, system one, as we understand, is a basic evolution. Okay, it's a basic evolution is system one. Okay, which is generally decisions are made, in a very automatic, instinctive, intuitive manner. Okay, where the efforts do not go into calculating the outcomes of a decision. So basically, a heuristic-based decision making. Okay, where you have certain information gathered and stored. Okay, and the current situation is being analyzed from the existing and stored information, and you make a decision. Okay, that is called a system one decision, which is generally less effortful, more programmed, okay, and effortless. Whereas system two is the one, okay, where you need to pressurize your mind to process information and make decisions. Okay, so Kahneman said the entire challenge in decision making, okay, is to move beyond system one, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize. Okay, that the whole idea is to move away from system one and move towards the system two, where decision making becomes more of a science than an art. Okay, because system one makes more or less decision an automatic process, though it doesn't follow any science, but also there is not much of data processing which happens. Whereas in system two, it is effortful, okay, because there are no clear patterns available. You try and hobnob with a lot of information, you process a lot of data, and that is where you arrive at a decision. Okay, so he said that system one and two are very exclusive systems. And he said they occupy two different, even if there is an amalgamation of the brain processes, okay, but he said that basically they occupy two different portions of your brain. Okay, so as you would see on the left side of your screen, left side of the slide, okay, the brain that you have, that has occupied a little more space than the right one, because that is more evolutionary. So what has happened that the genes have got transferred over the last 40,000 years. Okay, so certain decisions like a food, or say a hunger, response to hunger, response to sleep. Okay, these decisions are programmed decisions that we have been taking for the past 40,000 years. Okay, so it has been built into us. Okay, so a lot of aesthetic decisions are also controlled by this part of your brain. Okay, which as you could see on the left. On the right, as you could see, there are just the two spots. This is what we call is the neofrontal cortex. Okay, this is the frontal cortex just behind your forehead. Now this is a small tiny little part, okay, which gets generally engaged into processing complex information and giving you the kind of permutations and combinations which helps you to make the decision. So guys, in a nutshell, okay, cutting it short, the whole debate, okay, and the whole argument is all about changing from system 1 to system 2. That means making decisions, okay, more of a science, more of a thought through process than a plain instinctive, intuitive outcome. That's the whole idea. Any questions, guys? If I'm not making sense, or I'm deviating, or I'm blabbering, I don't know. Any questions at this point in time? Any questions? Okay. No response. Are you guys there? I don't know. This is another challenge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Very
okay,
much.
okay. I really don't know. Therefore, and then when I talk about system 2, it gets a little scary. Why? Because system 2 calls for a lot of effort, let me tell you. Okay, now the moment you ask, "Aisa kyun kar rahe ho?" the answer gets very difficult. Because the moment it's system 1, it gets easier. हाँ यार ऐसा ही करता रहा हूँ. It's so easy to answer. क्यों करो? It's so difficult to answer. That is where we get stuck. It's very challenging if you ask me, and it's a practice, it's a habit. Okay, the entire logical school that you see, that is something that we discussed yesterday, is focused on, somewhere or the other, training our brains, training our minds, okay, to change our track from 1 to 2. If not completely obliterate system 1, but somewhere or the other, because if you look at the past, look at the history, maybe last 2,000, 2,500 years, if you look at the major decisions in the world, it was all driven by system 1. System 2 is a recent phenomenon. Because we were gut driven, if a king thought that certain territory is a threat to their survival, they'll go and attack. That instinct is still there. That is how Afghanistan thinks about maybe some countries. That is how China thinks about a few countries. Okay, therefore it attacks smaller countries like Hong Kong. Okay, it attacks Taiwan. That fear is there. I'm not saying system 1 is obliterated completely, but the whole idea is that are we analyzing the whole gamut of information available to you from whichever source it comes. Okay, that's the whole idea. Okay, so hope I'm making sense. So let's talk about a few barriers since we have understood 1 and 2. So what actually is a barrier moving from 1 to 2 is something that we are going to discuss. That why it so happens that even if we understand system 2 is important, but we are not able to migrate. That migration doesn't happen because there are some serious barriers. Okay, and let's look at some of these barriers. Okay, I think a simple reading through exercise, there's nothing much to explain over here. So let's read it together, you and me. Okay. Yeah. First is level of decision making being not clear. Okay, so at times we don't know who is going to make the decision. Okay, in our department, is it the HOD, the professor, or the principal, or the vice dean, or the rector, or the vice chancellor? We really do not know who is going to make the decision. That brings in a lot of problems. Particularly, it creates an invisible barrier. It becomes a cognitive barrier. Okay, so the barriers that we are going to talk about, generally the biases that we are going to talk about, is cognitive in nature. Okay, we are not getting more into social biases. Okay, because that's a different topic and meant for a different discussion. We'll basically be talking about cognitive barriers. So one of the barriers is level of decision making not very clear. So if you look at the levels of decision making gets ambiguous, the decision gets distorted because you do not know the right avenue of the decision. As I told you, I mean, who to go? I really don't know. It's the HOD, the principal, the vice chancellor, the prime minister, the chief minister. I really do not know. Okay, and therefore I do not know how to carry out my decision. That's the barrier number 1. So whether it is at the lower, middle, or high level, I don't know. Okay, so that distorts, your ability to process the information because you really do not know who is going to call the shot, who is going to fire the bullet. Okay. Next is lack of time. Okay. Not unknown to any one of us. Why are we not able to make more efficient or quality decisions? Because we feel always there was less time. Okay, and this is the phenomenon which got another Nobel Prize. Okay, to one gentleman called Herbert Simon. Okay, he got a Nobel Prize because He analyzed the data. He was the one who talked about transactional cost economics. Okay, and he's the one, okay, who figured it out for the first time that managers, they make poor decisions. Okay, not because they are unintelligent. It's not because they lack experience. They say they do not analyze enough data. They do not analyze enough alternatives. And therefore, they try to figure out, or they try to settle at decisions, okay, which satisfies, okay, the minimum cost, okay, and the lowest time consumed. Okay, so this was called satisfice. Anybody who would have read organizational behavior, okay, or something basic on decision making would have definitely come across this word called satisfice. He said that managers generally try to satisfy two conditions. Okay, one is cost, okay, and other is the time. So since they claim that time and cost, they are both limited in supply, therefore they make decisions, okay, at in a haste, or not combining too many information. Okay, so lack of time is one, and then lack of reliable data. Lack of reliable data can be a major hindrance in making accurate decisions. Ambiguous and incomplete data often makes it difficult to make an appropriate decision. Go and ask a filmmaker, he will tell you why a film flops. One of the reasons is lack of reliable data at times. You are making a historical movie and you have not read 5 books on it. It will bomb. It will 100% bomb. Okay, because what you need, you see, the Gandhi continues to be the Gandhi movie made, okay, by Richard Attenborough. Okay, it continues to be a masterpiece. Okay, why? Because there was enough reliable data which backed. But several historical movies have bombed and flopped only because there was no reliable data behind it. Most of the films fail not because there was poor acting, okay, because it could not catch the audience's attention through the kind of reliable data it provided. I'm just giving you one of the examples. Okay, so if you look at several projects and decisions, at times we do not appreciate the effort because data was not reliable. At times your and my papers get rejected, and particularly who are in the quantitative domain, okay, who do a lot of reliability and consistency testing. Okay, when you send your paper abroad, particularly with the data, generally the Westerners believe that our data is not reliable. Generally, half of the paper gets rejected because they don't trust our data. I know a couple of editors who have said that in the past, that we don't trust Indian and Chinese data. We don't know from where it has been sourced, who has filled up the forms. We really do not know. So even if you are saying that you went through a pilot and then you made a reliability study, still people don't believe you. So your Cronbach alpha goes for a toss. Anyways, okay, so lack of reliable data, if you do not have proper data available, okay, even if you are making a grocery decision, okay, it will go haywire. Okay, even a grocery decision. Okay. And for your information, any idea that how many decisions do we make in a day? Any clue? Any clue?
Innumerable, sir.
But some calculations, some crazy mad people have gone into understanding, okay, that how fraction second decisions men make, and can we attach a number to it? And by some estimate, okay, we make close to 35,000 decisions a day. 35,000 decisions. Okay, I mean, that looks an unearthly number, okay, but then it's a fact. Okay, so well, let's not discuss from where they have arrived at 35,000. That's again is a long calculation. Okay, well, that's just for information. Risk-taking ability, sometimes, let me tell you guys that almost every decision comes with a risk. Risk aversion and the inability to make a decision, they are strongly correlated. They're strongly correlated. Sometimes we are not able to make a decision only because we are averse to taking risk. And this risk aversion, as we discussed in the previous lecture, if you remember yesterday, that risk aversion is a part of our evolution package. Okay, because anything that comes with the loss, okay, as I gave you the example of free versus paid, okay, the moment something comes free, okay, it definitely, it gives us a lot of motivation and energy to go and grab it. And that happens only because, okay, we fear the risk of losing. The risk of losing. So you make poor decision because somewhere or the other, you lack the ability to take a risk. Many researchers that I've talked to, they keep saying the same thing. That look, I'm not able to do research because I'm not able to think beyond this. I said, do stop you from writing cases. And then it's not as if not that I'm a great case writer. But then how many letters have you written to companies for primary data to be shared with you? How many times have you gone and talked to somebody in Infosys to share data with you? Maybe I know in India it's not very easy to get data. I mean, I'm also a researcher. Even I have written, a number of letters to different companies. I know it's difficult. It's not easy. Okay, but then how many? No, it's a little too risky. 200 letter likho, do ka bhi jawab nahi aata hai. So I mean, so you are not persisting enough because it's risky. You would persist only when the risk is less mitigated, right? If the risk is completely mitigated, okay, there is no question of making a sound decision. It gets defeated. So let's move on. Any questions, any views, any queries? Okay. Next slide. Barriers, too many options. Okay, sometimes you have too many options. And I don't think I have to speak enough on this. Okay, when you have too much on your plate, you really do not know what to eat and what to leave. Okay, finding the appropriate one can be difficult, particularly if a particular situation favors one constituency over the other. Now, there is a huge problem. Okay, I mean, if you look at every social debate that's going on in this country, every social debate, okay, it's all about too many options. Okay, if you pump in a lot of money there in the military, you are left little for education. Okay, if you pump in a lot of money in education, you have a problem in food security. If you pump in a lot of money in food security, okay, what happens to your infrastructure? Now look at the kind of dilemma even the government has. Again, these are all social sector priorities, and they are definitely priority areas, but then the options are too many and resources are always too limited. So what hampers your ability to make a decision is somewhere you are confronted with too many options. Okay, inadequate support. Now this is a little flimsy. It's little flimsy, but nevertheless, this also is a great factor. Again, the inadequate support. Even the best individual cannot work without an adequate support level from his environment. So sometimes your environment is not supportive of you making decisions. Just like a kid, he wants to take up a sport, but he really do not know, will he get enough support from family? So in India, most of the success story in sport happens with people who have run away from their families. Okay, if you look at the film successes, people not coming from film background, if you look at that, okay, most of the success stories come from people who have run away from their home. Okay, because they felt that home is a bigger constraint than a support. Okay, so, but I'm not suggesting that if somebody is wanting to become a sportsman should run away from home. That's not something I'm saying, but a lot of success stories say, or at least they are giving you some inkling, some hint that yes, support has to be adequate for a quality decision to be made. Okay, because cognitively we are, you see, try and understand, as I told you, we are hardwires, we are monkeys. Okay, we generally try to live in ghettos. We generally try to live in groups. So ghettoization in human survival is only very normal. You see, if I send you with a $2 million, go and stay in Antarctica, you are not going to stay, let me tell you. Even if I give it to एक भिखारी को भी भेज दो, वो नहीं जाएगा. The reason being, we all love human company. We love to live in groups, hunt in groups, and eat in groups. Okay, so that is a very normal, common phenomenon. Might have been said, several times before. So sometimes inadequate support can be a huge dampener, okay, in decision making. Lack of resources, needless to say, absolutely. Okay, inability to change is another factor which I would like to harp upon. Okay, that sometimes the change becomes the biggest block, the roadblock in decision making. Because at times when you are not able to change or you are not able to bring in the new perspectives in making your decision, you remain indecisive. Okay, so that is one of the factors. Okay, so Any questions up till this? Any questions? Any queries? Any views that you want to share with me? Some inadequacies that you might have pointed out in this presentation? Anybody? Because I'm speaking to other teachers I know, right? So many of you know much more than I know. Right?
Good morning, sir.
Anything? Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, you say sometimes the change becomes the biggest block. Will you please explain that in decision making?
Yeah. Please come back. Some disturbance. Come back, please.
So you said that sometimes the change becomes the biggest block in decision making. The last sentence that you said. So will you please explain that a little bit?
So the inability to change. I'm not saying change. When you are unable to change the fundamentals, that is what this is again a heuristic based argument. Okay, that when something has come to you, let me cite an example. You see, when you have tasted a lot of success on a particular recipe, okay, you think why certain restaurants close. Okay, locality is one thing. Okay, definitely locality is one thing. Pricing is another thing. Some of the restaurants, they get closed because they could not renew and reinvent themselves. Because eating is a basic function, and so long there is a restaurant, somebody will go and visit it. So what's the whole idea? That you need to cater to a different taste unless you are a niche restaurant. You're a very niche restaurant. Okay, again, pointing out outliers is easy. Okay, when I talk about a Michelin star restaurant, okay, now that's a different argument altogether. But I'm talking about 8 out of 10 restaurants. Okay, if they continue to be the run of the mill, they will close down unless they offer something at a very cheap price. Okay, for survival food, if you are there as a restaurant, it's fine. But if you are selling a fine dining experience, you somewhere need to reinvent yourself. So if you think that the past 20 years I have done a business following a certain model, a certain track, certain ingredients and certain taste, okay, it may not work in the future. That is what I was talking about, that your inability to find out new patterns. As I began my discussion with, if you are not able to recognize emerging patterns of doing business, it will be hard for you to do business. Similarly, I as a researcher, as I understand now today, okay, I need to do thrice the work that I used to do in 2010 to publish a paper. Be it sample, be it the number of hypotheses, be it the model building, okay, be it the limitations or discussions. I need to do thrice the work right now. First. And second, the way papers were written and the papers that are being written now, they are different. A 20 sample paper, I've seen my colleagues publishing papers with 20 sample in A and A star journals. The reason being they were able to somewhere or the other read new patterns. Sentiment analysis from Facebook is a new tool. This poor teacher does not know. I've been doing this for the past 15, 20 years. I had no clue what sentiment analysis until my friend. So that is about, somewhere reading that is where my friend was quick at it. He was very quick at it. So I cannot blame his ability. I need to blame my own inability to recognize an emerging pattern. So that is where I said pattern recognition is the one which is going to keep you superior. And inferior would be those creations which could not recognize the emerging patterns. Periods. Okay. Well, I suppose I have answered the question, if not to a great satisfaction, but I've attempted to answer the question. Okay, so let's move on to the crux of this conversation today, the bias. Okay, now we talked about the different roadblocks to making decisions, right? Now let's talk about that, how responsible you think you are for making low quality decisions or inadequate decisions. Okay, and if you ask me, the fatal error in decision making is bias. Whether you agree or disagree, this could be driven by the environment, this could be driven by your profession, it could be driven by your workplace, it could be driven by your family or you yourself. But if you ask me, a majority of decisions, if they go wrong, okay, they go wrong because there was a bias somewhere or the other. Social, political, cognitive does not matter. But there was a bias somewhere. So let's try and understand the nature of bias so that we are able to improve the quality of the sessions. Okay. So let's begin with what is a cognitive bias? It's a systematic error in thinking that happens when humans are processing and interpreting information in the world around them and affects the decisions and choices they make. So cognitive bias is usually a result of our brain's attempt to simplify information processing. Mind those words. We try to simplify the information. Okay. And then biases usually work as a rules of thumb, and they help us make sense of the world and reach decisions with relative speed. Something like, the Bengali Rasagollas are the best. Okay, now that's a very blanket statement we tend to make, a very categorical statement that we try to make, or the Hyderabadi biryani is the best. So even if Jaipur's halwai makes a equally good Rasagolla, okay, still we will say कि नहीं यार ये 99 है वही 100. This is 9 यार, this is not 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 has to be KC Das. Okay, so somewhere or the other, this implies that bias are a part of information processing system. This is not something that a Bengali to Rasagholla, Hyderabad to biryani. These are biases which hasn't occurred right now or in last 15 days. These biases are a part of our basic formative framework. So it forms the fundamental thought process of you and me. So biases are not new. And biases are not accidents. Like people say, I got biased accidentally. Biases are never accidental. Biases are the basic fabric of your mind patterns, or schemas as we call them technically. They're a part of the schemas. Okay, so because of this, yeah. Please go ahead. Somebody wanting to speak, please go ahead. Okay, so because of this, subtle biases can sneak in and influence the way we see and think about the world. So this may not be a very apparent bias, but a subtle bias. A subtle bias. The biases we have in India, regional biases, particularly regional biases, culinary biases, all sorts of biases, the political biases, etc., etc. Even the religious and communal biases that we have. These are subtle, huh? They are not very direct. They are not very apparent, but they are a part of our thinking fabric. Okay. So let's move on. Any questions, any doubts over here? Okay. So let's get, yeah, somebody wanting to say something? Yes? No? Okay, good. So let us categorize the biases. Okay, biases can be counted actually in hundreds. 50 or 60 you will get to see the moment you Google it. Okay, but let us try and categorize biases, because that will help us to figure out which is the source of these biases. What are the source of these biases? ये निकलती कहाँ से है? इनकी उत्पत्ति कहाँ से है? Let us try it. So for that, we need to figure out just the 3 categories. As you could see here, attention, memory, and knowledge biases. These are basically the 3 categories. And other categories that I am going to discuss maybe in the next few minutes, somewhere or the other could be linked to any one of these 3. Let us begin with an attention bias. What's an attention bias? Incentive processing. Okay, are you getting incentive processing, survival space, or loss avoidance? Again, this is an evolutionary bias. Our mind is constantly bombarded with information from all around, all kinds of information. So our brain is specialized in figuring out what are the incentives that are coming with the information. our mind is particularly very adept, okay, to connecting with incentives. And the moment you smell chocolate from a distance, okay, it starts releasing a few neurotransmitters. Okay. The moment you see a bar, somebody who relishes drinking, the moment he sees a bar, even at a distance, okay, he starts to get those good vibrations in him. खुशबू आने लगती है दूर से मैं खाने की, दूर से ही आने लगती. Okay, so your biases more or less are processed by one side of your brain, which recognizes the incentive part of it, so that you can retain the profit part of it, okay, and discard and exclude the losses part of it. So attention is one particular faculty of your brain, okay, which helps you to incentivize your survival, okay, and disincentivize anything which doesn't help you to have that good feeling. So आप monkeys को देखिए, okay, they are so careful at choosing places where they can get their food easily. That's there with dogs also, but monkeys are smarter. Monkeys are smarter. You can throw biscuits at dogs and feed them. It won't be that easy with monkeys. It will take some more time, of course, but it won't be easy. They are very watchful because they know how to enhance their positive experiences and how to decrease their negative experiences. They are excellent at it. I hope you have understood. Okay. Next is your memory biases. Again, your mind is essentially a huge pot of information. It receives information from various sources. So essentially what it does, it selects information which it thinks that it's useful. Okay, so memory bias is the bias which helps you to build a heuristic. Okay, what's the heuristic again? Your past experiences, okay, which helps you to make a future decision. Okay, now basically your heuristic is supported by your memory bias, where it tries and retains all those information which gives you a shortcut to make a decision. Okay, so moment you see a barking dog and you start throwing a stone, essentially it is a heuristic shortcut. It might be barking for a different reason, but you fear it is about to bite you. The moment you see a snake, either you run away from it or you start hitting sticks at it. Why? Because somewhere the heuristic tells you that this is the best possible cognitive shortcut that you have. And let me tell you guys over here that cognitive shortcuts are dangerous propositions. The entire brain training goes into minimizing the cognitive shortcuts. Okay, and the third is the knowledge bias, differentiating, scheming, plastic, and storage. Okay, this means that one part of your brain, okay, is expert in storing the information and modifying and modulating it the way an emerging situation demands. Okay, so what happens that your brain starts to scheme things. Scheming happens in your brain. It differentiates the information, puts it in different silos, okay, and tries and gives a permutation combination which helps you to make the decision. So essentially all your biases emerge from any one of these three. So all your biases are attention related, or they are memory related, or they are knowledge related. It could be a confirmation bias or an anchoring bias or a halo effect or a horn effect, which we are going to discuss. Okay, whatever be these kinds of, okay, but the source of these biases would be. So if your effort is going into minimizing the biases, you need to figure out at the first place that which is your source. Is it the attention? Is it the memory? Is it the knowledge? Clear? Any questions over here? Guys, any questions over here? Any opinions?
No questions as such.
Yeah, please go
Just
ahead.
one.
Mhm.
Yeah, generally we tend to try to minimize our bias, but it is something in our subconscious mind. So we generally cannot do that in most of the cases.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like
which is
if I am a Punjabi and I see some Punjabi person speaking something, so obviously there will be a kind of biasness that yes, he is a Punjabi, he is saying this particular thing. So there is
simple.
some kind of biasness subconsciously.
Sardarjis are great truck drivers. Okay, that is, so what happened that a piece of history became a part of our cognition. Piece of history. Okay, they picked up a profession. Okay, like Rasgulla was picked up by some Bengali cooks. Okay, and they mastered it. So what happened that somebody's expertise became a part of our cognition. So every time we see a truck, we associate it with a Sardarji. No, they are great truck drivers. Truck drivers survived. Today, not even 3% of all truck drivers in India are Sardars. Yet the moment we think of a truck, we think of a Sardar. That is the kind of associative. This is called associative memory. But the problem with associative memory is that it helps you only to strengthen your bias. It never helps to. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very effortful thing. So the whole idea is to move from system 1 to system 2. Your biases are essentially a result of your system 1. Now we are talking about building and strengthening the system 2. And unless system 2 strengthens, your biases won't minimize. Truck and Sardar will go hand in hand. UP and violence will go hand in hand, whether it's right or not. Per capita crime is one of the lowest in the world in India. Yet we say Delhi is the world's rape capital. I don't know how. Where is the data? It could be the rape capital of India, possible. But rape capital of the world, and let us look at the concentration of population. When you are talking about 2 crore or 2.5 crore humanity living, okay, within a boundary of what, 200 square kilometers? And if there is an incidence of rape, okay, should it imply that it becomes a rape capital of the world? People would not know that some of the highest occurrences of rapes happen in Scandinavian countries, which we don't even know. So you see biases. So what happens that events become a part of our cognition. Like a Rasgulla and a Bengali, it comes together. If somebody else, in Lucknow, you get great Rasgullas, but you don't appreciate. So the whole idea that unless the primacy of system 2 happens, your biases and your quality of decision making won't work. So generally, a Bengali managing director will definitely look for another Bengali to join him. A Sardarji will definitely look for another Sardarji colleague in the organization. Okay, because that has become a part of their cognition, because he tries to, this is what I'm saying, this is an associative memory. It's easy. I'm looking for a Bengali to speak in Bengali. Okay, so what happens that language becomes my biggest connect. I as an Oriya will look for another Oriya if I'm sitting here in Nagpur. Why? Because somewhere there is an associative memory which brings me closer to the other person, because I feel that language is one particular medium to express all my feelings, emotions, and even intellect. Intellect may not have a language, but for me, Oriya is the best medium to offer my intellect. Therefore, I look for an Oriya to give all my gyan unnecessarily, whether he wants it or he does not. So if you look at all, therefore I'm saying like crime and UP or rape and Delhi, these are uncorrelated claims, either through media trials or simply because it is a part of our heuristic. If there are 21 crore people, okay, living in one state with one chief minister, okay, don't you think the occurrences of crime and rape will go up? And even if it is per capita, it is still one of the lowest in the world. Unless you go to a tiny country like San Marino or Liechtenstein. So these are not correlated facts. These are all a result of the kind of biases that we carry. Okay, so to minimize this, moving from system 1 to system 2. Okay, so let's move forward. Any questions over here, or any opinion that somebody wants to throw a fact, or you might have I misled somebody, or I might have quoted something wrong over here, so you can correct me. You can always correct me. Okay, so now let us look at a few biases. Okay, this is a very small list of biases, right? You go and Google it, you get hundreds of biases. I'm just giving you a few biases over here, which are generally recognized as cognitive biases. Okay. So this is a sample of biases, not a very exhaustive list. So begin with the confirmation bias. Look at it and identify. Humans tend to ignore information that does not fit with their belief while they weigh agreeable information more heavily. This is known as the confirmation bias and can bring a lot of problems. Okay, so confirmation, every time I told you a Bengali or a Punjabi or a Odia or a Telugu, there would be a confirmation bias because the values that he thinks is right. Somebody has just sent a message that he's only able to see the first slide. Hey, not all of you are able to see the types of biases.
Yes, sir, we can see. I can see.
Okay, so there has to be an issue with your internet, gentlemen. So please go and okay. So since majority of you can see, that means there is a glitch in the internet. So please go and check your connectivity. Okay, well, so confirmation bias is that every time we desire to conform to our own values, and the moment we see that somebody's values are distinct from ours, okay, we get a little biased. That's the reason that why government is trying so hard and incentivize actually things which are uncorrelated, bring things together which are uncorrelated. Why is it that inter-caste and inter-religious marriages, okay, are being promoted by the government? So that at least some of these confirmation biases reduce. We had one movie now, I don't watch movies, so I really do not know. There was movie Two States or something like that on Chetan Bhagat's movie. Exactly, it talked about this. That family confirmation to values is important. So unless you conform to somebody else, it is displaying same values which you are displaying, unless there is a congruence, okay, we generally tend to disassociate ourselves. Okay, first. Second is in-group bias. Ye to common hai har organization mein. It is not just in India, anywhere in the world. So let's not give anything that is unsubstantiated. Anywhere in the world you get to see this. Prevalence a little more in some place, prevalence is somewhere else a little less. But then this is a global phenomenon. This type of bias encourages the organization to play a game of us versus department, or department versus department, or it's me versus my department. हो जाए, देखते हैं, एक दंगल हो ही जाए. So this becomes a dangal basically. In-group bias is a dangal. आओ लड़ते हैं. Now this is a bias which emanates from our innate confidence in people having similar values. So in-group will think they are superior, they should have better access to resources, so on and so on. That happens everywhere. I was just wondering, okay, the NIT Rourkela in Orissa or NIT in Durgapur in Bengal, 90+% of their faculty members are all either Orias or Bengalis. Why that has to happen, I don't understand. Why that has to happen? That means we do not have enough non-Bengali and non-Oriya people who can come and work in these national institutes of importance. We don't have. So that somewhere there is an in-group bias, let's try, and because we are trying to look for that resemblance. Okay. Similarly, recency bias, not much to say over here in HR. Okay, recency bias is something which is found very common. Okay, this is also called as a critical incident method, sometimes used by HR managers to appraise their employees. Okay, so the recency bias is one of many biases that make people hate review and feedback. Okay, sometimes कभी-कभी मैं भी एक आधा appraisal में बैठता हूँ, हालांकि बहुत छोटे-छोटे appraisal. So somebody will come, sir, the boss only looked at my colleague's very recent performance. Sir, वो पहला 10 महीना भूल जाते हैं. He forgets the first 10 months. He only focuses on the last 2 months. Sir, मैं क्या करूँ, मैं बीमार थी. I said, ये आपकी गलती नहीं है, ये human bias है. We generally tend to relate things which are more visible to us in recent past. It's a very innate tendency because our memories are fresh with that incident. Anything that happened in the distant past, we won't remember. Unless it was too explosive in nature. Unless it was too explosive. So if it's a normal, Okay, a usual humdrum of life, we don't remember. And we tend to ignore. Similarly, system justification bias, that I won't change status quo, जैसे का तैसा रहेगा, like सरकारी employee. Particularly sarkari employee in the sense, the person who is programmed to serve a system, not serve excellence. He won't change. Sorry for using the word government. I'm so sorry. When I'm biased, I think I'm, because I work in the private sector. You see, when I'm biased, it came out. There are brilliant people serving the government. Brilliant. So the brilliant people serving there. They're more committed to their jobs than I am. Look at the bias. But then again, it's a generally established fact that people who try to more or less, okay, people who are try more or less to justify what they have been doing for the years, okay, is what gives rise to a system justification. What we are doing is, and also there is a saying in English which I remember somebody in the US said this, that don't fix things that ain't gone broke. I fix things that hasn't gone broke. Now that's a nice saying. That's a nice saying. I agree. Why would you unnecessarily use quick fix unless there is a crack or a fissure somewhere? But then, doesn't that imply that at least you should carry a stick of Fevikwik with you? You never know when you might just discover a crack or a fissure. Nothing wrong. Right. Now, let us look at the
आज वाले सुबह वाले सेशन में मेरा लकी ड्रॉ निकला, अभी पता नहीं क्या निकला, मैं उस वक्त थी नहीं.
Somebody is speaking something or wanting to speak
उसका
something.
मैसेज आया.
Somebody's mic is still.
वही करावे ना.
I think some conversation in the background going on. Dr. Nidhi, I think.
I have muted her. Please continue.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So let's look at the poor higher bias, or the halo effect as we call it. This leads to stereotyping generally. So what's a halo? Halo, we also used to have a halo shampoo during my younger days. Okay, the halo shampoo was that Procter & Gamble, I think, launched it in India. Okay, so that shampoo itself talks that it gives you a temporary impression about somebody. So halo effect is one effect, okay, which creates a stereotype about a certain type of people. Okay, and it happens in a moment, in a ziffy. It happens in a fraction of a second. You say this is my, you call it, some people call it intuition, and some people call it infatuation. At times I call it infatuation. You fell in love with somebody, just a halo effect. So most of the boys, they fall for girls just for this effect called halo effect. And this is a very strong bias, because this also derives itself from the value system that you have. That's what I'm saying. This is not accidental. This is not accidental. It's all there. So halo effect is the first impression effect. You see somebody, look at somebody, the way one walks, one talks, and you get carried away. No, boss, he is the one going to work with my company. He is the one who's going to join this department. And you don't process any further information. That is how even criminals get hired, I tell you. Even disruptors and racketeers and scamsters also get recruited because of that halo effect. Charisma, people call it. I don't know. I don't know what is being charismatic. Okay, you need to be an expert. Charisma comes from there, right? Anyways, overconfidence bias. Now this is glaring and a blazing example, unfurling right in front of you. The United States of America, the overconfidence bias. Overconfidence bias generally leads to something in accounting called a sunk cost fallacy. Now, overconfidence bias is the one when you commit good resources to bad outcomes. Okay, that is a sunk cost fallacy. That means you try to commit your resources out of your overconfidence. Like America, every time US thinks, and I actually do a case on Iraq war. Afghan war, I'm waiting for a case to come up, and I'm sure it will come next year. But we do a case on Iraq war, a fairly well-written case. And we have seen that generally Americans are stung by this bias called overconfidence bias. Yeah, we will go and destroy, demolish them. They will be obliterated. Ye kya hai? Jukar baithe hue hain. They did the same in North Korea. They did the same in Vietnam. They tried doing the same in Iraq, in Kuwait. They tried doing the same, bullying Cuba. Now something they did in Afghanistan. We at least had a country. Now we have none. Iraq had a country, which is nothing now. Syria is beyond redemption. Culprit is just one, the US. Bias is one, overconfidence. That when you think, when you measure your abilities higher than the others, that's the syndrome, and it's a deadly and a dirty syndrome. But look, हम तो ऐसे ही जाएंगे. I remember George W. Bush saying, "What we will smoke them out of the holes in Afghanistan." Smoking them out. सोचो भैया. And what happened? $2.5 trillion have gone into protecting one damn ego. And what does it give? What does it give back? A Taliban. $2.5 trillion. We are aspiring to become a $5 trillion as an economy. They have spent 2.5 of it just in protecting and guarding their one overconfidence. And what happens? Like a jilted lover, you pump in more money. You pump in more and more money for the same cause, knowing that the outcomes are still going to be disastrous. Oh, I think we need to move a little fast. Okay, similarly, anchoring bias. Anchoring bias is something when you are tied up, to your existing value system, you are anchored. बोलते हैं ना हमारे बंगाल में सब कुछ सस्ता है, हमारे उड़ीसा में सब कुछ सस्ता है, राजस्थान में अच्छा मिलता है. एंकरिंग बायस. कुछ भी बंगाल में सस्ता नहीं है, आपकी सोच सस्ती. Why? Because you are anchored in Bengal. You haven't yet come out of it. दिल्ली महंगी है. I don't know. I have talked to people with 300 rupees income. They still survive. And there are people in Bengal earning 20,000 rupees a day. बहुत नहीं है. धंधा ठीक नहीं है. We get anchored to certain outcomes and certain values. Deadly. Come out of that anchor. Confirmation bias, I think we can move on. It's a repetition. Hindsight bias is the tendency we believe that we have accurately predicted a particular event. अगर शनिवार को इंडिया हार जाती है इंग्लैंड से, सोमवार को तुम बोलोगे कि मुझे तो पता था हिंदुस्तान हार जाएगी. You'll say that. I've seen people saying, I knew it, India won't win it. That is what we call as a hindsight bias. You tend to exaggerate your ability to predict things, not based on historical data, but based on your ability to speculate. Okay. So speculation becomes your yardstick. Representative bias, representation bias is when a decision maker wrongly compares two solutions because of a perceived similarity. जो पहले हुआ था, similar events, one representing, अरे हमारे जमाने में बच्चे कितने, हम कितने अच्छे, representative bias. हमारे बच्चे बुरे नहीं हैं, हमसे smarter है. We need to admit that. ये और चीज है कि हमने कंट्रोल छोड़ दिया. हमको किसी ने बता दिया कि कंट्रोल छोड़ दो, बच्चा आइंस्टाइन बन जाएगा. आइंस्टाइन 100 साल में तो एक ही बनाया, और कितने बनाओगे? So the whole idea is that we lost control, but we think that our generation was better. No, this generation is smarter than ours. We need to admit that. They are faster. They are multitaskers. We are slow and rigid, but then we won't admit that. Our problem is, since things are not in our control, our previous generation was worse than ours. Sorry, this generation is worse than the previous ones or the ours. Okay. Now, representative bias ho gaya. Availability bias suggests that decision makers use the information that is most readily available to them when making a decision. Again, the source of heuristic or source of statistics. Okay, and then the randomness error. If you are a certain, your lucky tie will help you earn a client business at a meeting. ये तो होता ही है. तो ज्योतिषी का जो दुकान चल रहा है, it's just for this. ज्योतिषी की पूरी दुकान है, वो इसकी वजह से चल रहा है. Okay, that you feel that certain numbers are lucky, certain ties are lucky, these are coincidences. Anyways, you can still believe in those. There's not a problem, because that gives you a psychological comfort. As we call it. Messi and Tendulkar's numbers, they gave them that psychological comfort. Again, there is psychological comfort and there is psychological safety. And psychological comfort is of a great significance because it cools you down. You feel you are at home. So that's a great thing. So there's nothing wrong if you have a number or you love a tie, but don't be biased. मैं इसको पहना इसीलिए सेंचुरी मारा, ऐसा नहीं. Okay, then you have selective perception, that you tend to selectively only record things and other things you exclude very comfortably. It's good also, bad also. First impression bias, something like a halo. Then spillover bias. Okay, individuals' perspective are paying too much attention to past information. प्रेजेंट का कुछ नहीं देखते. वो गंदा है, था का मतलब अब भी रहेगा. भाई स्कूल में तू ऐसा था, तू नहीं सुधरेगा. That's called a spillover bias. The person that you are seeing me right now could be a very different, but I would have a same lens to apply it. A negativity bias is an unfortunately common characteristic of human nature. When we are presented with information about a situation, some of which is positive and some of it, then we tend to focus more on this. Again is hardwired, right? Right, one train accident and every report reports it, every newspaper reports it, okay, on the front page. And there are close to 13,000 trains which reach their destination safely every day. Nobody reports about it, not even one line. I haven't yet read on any newspaper anybody saying that today 3.5 crore people reach their homes safely. Nobody writes. And one damn negative occurrence somewhere and it gets highlighted everywhere. Similarity bias and horn effect is important. That's the negative of the halo effect. Okay, there you get to see the positive side, and here you get to see the negatives. Any doubts over here? Any questions whatsoever? I will wrap it up in next 5 minutes. Let me tell you guys, I'll move very fast from now because I have, as I told you, a very uncanny track record of never finishing my slides, and I don't want to improve on that record. Okay, I tried yesterday, I failed. I'm not going to try it again today. So guys, identify your blind spots. I think this is the most important thing, that what are your blind spots? Are there any blind spots in you? And everybody, most of us, we generally exaggerate about ourselves. Okay, so identify your blind spots. That's important. Seek out the insider perspective. Seek suggestion. Try to know those who know you and the situation. Whole problem is that we carry on with our biases, okay, because we try to find out similar companies, similar people. Bengali scouting for another Bengali, Oriya scouting for another Oriya, Telugu scouting for another Telugu. There is the problem. If you are scouting too much for similarity, you will never know that what exactly are your biases, what are your blind spots. So try and seek suggestion from people who you think, okay, can help you. Or at least talk to people who know who you are and who you are not. Okay. War game your potential failure. This is something we tell our CEOs and managers to do. Generally in my MDPs, I do that you try to preempt an end game. You try to enact an end game. Yeah, I failed somewhere. सोचो मैं fail कर गया in my decision. What would be the outcomes? That is how you'll have a feel of your biases. You'll get some idea, some hint, some inkling about what are your kind of biases. Okay, so this is what we call is a pre-mortem. Instead of a post-mortem, do a pre-mortem. Suppose you have failed. इस project में हम fail हो गए. क्या हो? Then you do a scenario planning based on your failure. Anyways, test for implicit assumption. Look for unrelated help. Call for a devil's advocate. Try and figure out people who are not connected to what you are doing. Research में ऐसा generally करता हूँ. I'll send my paper to somebody in finance. मैं वो भी कहूँ. मतलब पढ़ लो, तुमको कैसा लग रहा है, एक बार देख लो, ठीक है. बोलेगा नहीं सर, ये तो मेरे को बड़ा कॉमन सेंस लग रहा है, कुछ और ऐड करिए ना. Then I'll add. Sometimes biases would come, or at least you would learn about your biases. Okay, when you talk to people who are not related, who are not correlated, because they will be able to give you a more secular view about who you are. They'll give you a more impartial view. Okay. Clear? Any questions? No. Should I talk about this slide or not? Let me skip this slide because, in short, in a minute, let me tell you what this slide talks about. We generally have a lot of biases. Okay, we generally have these biases because from somewhere inside we are convinced that we are experts. We generally evaluate ourselves from a very higher lens. So the problem is, the moment we declare ourselves to be experts, that is where we start to become biased. Expertise का ये मैंने problem देखा, यहाँ नहीं, तकरीबन हर field में. Surgeons becoming outdated, doctors writing horrible prescriptions, only because they started believing that they are experts. So somewhere, are we all trapped into this? Are we all trapped into the net and the web of expertise? Because that will create a wall in front of you. बहुत मुश्किल जाता है उसमें. So if you think that you are getting trapped into or sucked into expertise, okay, there are certain ways to pin it down, to track it. These are the ways. These are some of the signs. You are unfamiliar with the new technologies or approaches in your profession or industry. I'm taking 2 more minutes because somebody said, you please continue. Okay, so that gives me, some wavelength, some latitude to speak a little. Okay, and it's so invitational. Okay, it's so tempting for a teacher to speak, and always under the assumption that people are listening. इस सच्चाई क्या है आपको भी पता और मुझे भी पता है. Okay, so when you answer, I always been doing a certain way. हाँ, मैं तो ऐसा ही करता रहा हूँ का मतलब वो एक्सपर्ट बन गया. बचो उससे. बचना बहुत जरूरी, आवश्यक है. किसी ने बोल दिया कि मैं ऐसे 20 सालों से कर रहा हूँ, और वो आगे चल के ऐसा ही करे. ना स्लाइड नहीं बदलेगा, 20 सालों से वही स्लाइड बना चला रहा है. The problem. You focus more on risk than opportunity. People who talk more about risk than opportunity का मतलब वो expert है, उसके बाहर नहीं जाएगा. When somebody is talking about innate risks in what he is doing, means he's not ready to change either his ability to take risk or the kind of things he's already there into. He won't shift. And then you see the unusual. Okay, in some of your colleagues' work, जैसे कि ये bias मेरे साथ है, expertise का bias. क्या है? अगर कोई बंदा अगर WhatsApp पे बढ़िया काम कर रहा है, maybe doing something meaningful, मेरे को लगे यार ये कुछ ना कुछ खराबी कर रहा हूँ, मेरे को नहीं आता है. I don't know. I always suspect individuals and particularly youngsters who are working using some technology platform. गड़बड़ है. जबकि मेरे को पता है ये मेरे पल्ले नहीं पड़ने वाला, मेरे ऊपर से जाएगा, टेंजेंशियली जाएगा। बट देन आई गेट अ फीलिंग भैया मैं तो एक्सपोर्ट में कुछ गड़बड़ हो रहा है, व्हाट्सएप है, फेसबुक है, कुछ तो भी टेक्निकल प्लेटफॉर्म जो मेरी समझ में नहीं, आई विल थिंक नो बॉस, दैट इज अनदर साइन दैट यू हैव डिक्लेयर्ड योरसेल्फ एन एक्सपर्ट। बचना है इनसे, मैं तो उस डॉक्टर एक्सपर्ट से बिल्कुल बचता हूँ। मैं पता करता हूँ यहाँ कौन एक्सपर्ट डॉक्टर नहीं है, बता, बिकॉज ही विल बी रेडी टू एटलीस्ट एक्सपीरियंस। एक्सपर्ट डॉक्टर का प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हैजंट read a textbook in last 20 years, and their prescriptions are so very similar. I have seen 4 to 5 prescriptions that I have seen just for experimental journal, so similar. Okay, कोई compositions it might have worked 20 years before, अब नहीं करता, नहीं कर, वो मारेगा तो नहीं लेकिन रोग से बचाएगा, पीड़ा बनी रहेगी, हालांकि मरोगे नहीं। You propose the same strategies and methods for emerging problems. अगर वही चीजें बार बार बोलते रहो, ठीक है, और उसको improve करते रहो, instead of improving new things, you try the same thing in an improvised manner. Okay, that shows that you are an expert. Bias. If your juniors stay away from your company or stop relishing your company, भैया आप एक्सपर्ट हो गए, आपके पास कोई नहीं आ रहा है। अगर आपके पास लोग आ रहे हैं का मतलब आप अभी तक एक्सपर्ट नहीं हुए, means you are ready to experiment, they are ready to experiment. अगर आप एक्सपर्ट हो गए and you become too serious about your life and you try to give a very serious posture to the rest of the world, okay, you are an expert. ठीक है, bias will crop in. ठीक है, अपने को बचाने का है, enjoy everybody's company. Okay, now some ways to minimize bias. आज मैं अपना रिकॉर्ड तोड़ ही दूंगा, आज मैं खत्म कर दूंगा अपने सारे स्लाइड्स। ओके, सेल्फ अवेयरनेस, ठीक है, आत्मबोध वी कॉल इट इन हिंदी, इन संस्कृत थोड़ा ये भी होना जरूरी है। सेल्फ अवेयरनेस, खुद को थोड़ा जानो समझो, लेकिन वो आसान नहीं है, इसलिए ले आउट द रेंज ऑफ ऑप्शंस। सारे ऑप्शंस तो लिख नहीं सकते, लेकिन कुछ तो लिख डालो, इट हेल्प्स। इफ देयर आर 6 रिसर्च प्रपोजल्स दैट यू आर थिंकिंग, राइट 12, उसमें से 2 ही बनेगा। Write 12 proposals you think you can proceed with. Lay out the range of options. List the main decision maker. कौन कौन निर्णय ले सकते हैं उनको लिस्ट डाउन करो, and focus only 1 or 2 decision makers. सब पर फोकस मत करो, पागल हो जाओगे। Just figure out कि who are the people who you think are making the decision, so that your biases are minimized. Focus only on 1 or 2. Check for inappropriate self-interest. ये देखो कि जो डिसीजन मेकर उसका कोई सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट है क्या, या तुम्हारा कोई सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट है क्या, देयर विल बी अ बायस। चेक फॉर मिसलीडिंग मेमोरीज, जैसे मेमोरीज है क्या which might just mislead you in the current decision making process. If these bad memories are interfering, try to say bye bye to them. Repeat the analysis with the next most influential person. So go with your proposal to the person who is next to the most influential person. He will give you an independent, candid, secular feedback. Finally, review the list of red flags that you have identified. Again, try and rewrite your own biases or the red flags you have just noticed about yourself. Thank you. Queries welcome. I don't think there is any scope for queries now. I think I have already overshot my mandate. My mandate was till 11:45. It's 12 already. So thank you for patient hearing. Any questions you can ask?
I have a comment to make, not a question. This is Shruti.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
My name is Shruti. I'm from Delhi. Thank you for the presentation. I take exception to one of the examples that you gave regarding, I think it was confirmation bias, if I'm not mistaken. The example that you gave was that of rape cases in India. One, I think any talk on rapes have to be handled sensitively and with adequate trigger warning given to the audience. And secondly, the implication that India's rape statistics are not so grave as reported is doing a disservice to the victims who repeatedly find it difficult to get the injustice meted out to them acknowledged. So I don't know the statistics on which you base your argument on. And thirdly, when you compare Indian statistics to Scandinavian countries, there is a problem here. The high rate of reported rape, and I use the word reported, is because of the high level of confidence that they have in the legal systems and because of the high gender equality. So basically, the argument that the high rape rate in India is a result of any sort of bias or media hype seems to be inherently flawed to me. Thank you.
Okay, that's all. Have you spoken? And thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay, I'm sorry if I have quoted anything wrong. Okay, because human is to err, right? Err is to human, as we call it. So if I have made mistakes, I'm sorry. And you are a teacher. Since you are a teacher, you have made a lot of sense in what you said. Okay, that's all. Any other questions? Any other questions? You see, my remarks were based on what statistics I have. Okay, it has nothing to do with my opinion being added to it. All I'm saying that generally we conform to facts based on, and then we exaggerate. The whole thing is that might just embolden people. Okay, but then since you have quoted a few statistics and data, I'm happy. I'm glad that you are informed. I'm so glad. I'm sorry if I've said anything wrong. Any other question? Any other question? Any other doubts? Yeah. 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 Any question? Yeah. Any question? Okay, so no questions. So no questions. And some other platform. Catch up again. Thank you and namaskar. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty, for your insightful session. And regarding the objection raised by one of the participants, I would like to say that we are not at all insensitive about anybody's this gender or anything. If Professor Mohanty has quoted something, it is from some statistics. Please don't take it otherwise, because we know everybody is concerned, everybody is conscious about what is going on, and this is a Government of India sponsored program. The recordings are being sent to Government of India. That means we know what we are speaking, the resource persons know what they are speaking. Okay, so hence